Today I'm going to discuss opportunistic mycosis. Now, what do you understand by this term opportunistic fungi or opportunistic mycosis? These are the organisms which are going to produce disease in immunocompromised individuals. 5 genera have been identified, and Dr. Nadia has already shown this slide to you. She has done Candida and Aspergillus with you, and I'll be doing Cryptococcus, Mucor, and Rhizopus. Now, before I move on to the main topic, the learning objectives for this topic is that all of you should be able to enlist the opportunistic fungi. You should know their habitat, their clinical manifestations, and the lab diagnosis. Now, I've been telling you again and again that lab diagnosis is very important, and in this case also, the lab diagnosis constitutes the most important part of this topic. Coming to Cryptococcus, Cryptococcus neoformans causes cryptococcosis. The genus of Cryptococcus is Cryptococcus, and the species which are responsible for human infections, number one is Cryptococcus neoformans and the other is Getty. The third one, grubby, is basically an environment contaminant and it does not cause human disease. Now, regarding their morphology, they are oval budding yeast cells, and you can well identify the capsule which is surrounding them. This capsule is polysaccharide in nature, and the organism, the main yeast is attached by the bud, and you can see this narrow base by means of which it is attached to the parent yeast cell. And this narrow base is very important because this is going to constitute one of your MCQs. It is a narrow based bud and the capsule is polysaccharide in nature. The size of the capsule is nearly twice the size or twice the diameter of the main yeast itself. Now this slide I generally show to my students because this constitutes one of your MCQs. Blastomyces, it's a systemic fungus which is responsible for blastomyces and blastomycosis. And this is, if you look at this bud, the bud is attached to the main yeast by a broad base. You can see this broad base. So this is a single broad-based budding yeast as compared to Cryptococcus where there is narrow-based budding yeast. You can see this narrow-based as compared to the broad-based, and this constitutes one of your MCQs. Regarding its habitat, neoformin is mainly seen in soil which is contaminated with birds or pigeon droppings or chicken droppings, and that is why it is also seen in nest and in old buildings where the birds and the pigeons reside. However, Getty on the other hand is associated with eucalyptus trees and it is very commonly seen in the United States. It is also found in the subtropical and tropical areas of many countries. Regarding its modes of transmission, neoformans is going to be the infection occurs due to inhalation of the spores. However, no human to human transmission has been identified. Birds are not infected because all this pathogen is present in its feces. Birds are not infected because they have a very high temperature as compared to at which this organism is going to grow. Virulence factors associated with Cryptococcus. Polysaccharide capsule is the most important virulent factor, and this is, you all know by now that it is going to prevent phagocytosis. So it is antiphagocytic in nature. Urease, it produces urease, which is going to disrupt the blood-brain barrier and can then help in or facilitates the spread of infection. And thirdly, it has the ability to grow at a human body temperature, which is 37 degrees centigrade. Now, this is the type of question that you generally see in your exams. The patient has AIDS and has all the signs and symptoms of meningitis. The Indian ink preparation of spinal fluid shows several budding yeast cells with wide capsule and a narrow bud. So, you can see the main markers here, narrow bud and a wide capsule, which is indicating that the organism is Cryptococcus neoformans and the clinical diagnosis is cryptococcosis. Then the examiner asks you about the habitat and the clinical manifestation of this fungus, and as I said, generally with all SCQs, One part is diagnosis, laboratory diagnosis of the pathogen. Coming to its clinical manifestation and pathogenesis, this organism is going to produce cryptococcosis in immunocompetent individuals, like people who are working in poultry farms or who are raising pigeons, etc. But they are normal individuals. They are mostly asymptomatic, or there may be mild self-limited infections associated with them. In immunocompromised individuals, like people with AIDS, they can lead to life-threatening invasive diseases like meningitis, they can cause pneumonia, or they could be subcutaneous nodules or papules. Coming to the life cycle of neoformans, the life cycle starts with the inhalation of spores, which are present either in the bird's droppings or on Eucalyptus trees. Once these spores are inhaled, they go into the lungs, where the lung within in normal individuals or in the asymptomatic individuals, they are destroyed by the immune system. But in immunocompromised individuals, they are going to the bloodstream and then they are carried either to the brain, leading to meningitis, or they're going to go to the other organs of the body. In patients with AIDS, who are, you all know, immunocompromised, if they get infected with cryptococcus, the treatment with HAART, which is, what is HAART? It is highly active antiretrovirus therapy, which is given to patients with with patients with AIDS. They are going to cause a phenomena which is known as IRIS. So IRIS stands for Immune Reconstitutional Inflammatory Syndrome. And in this condition, with HAART, the heart is going to increase the CD4 cells, as a result of which there is going to be increase in the inflammatory response, and this is going to bring about an exacerbation of the symptoms in the patient. So it is very important to treat the patient treat cryptococcus before starting the patient with HAART therapy. It has been seen that some patients have died as a result of cryptococcus IRIS, and this IRIS also constitutes one of your MCQs. The clinical manifestations are generally in form of CNS infections or cutaneous infections. CNS infections can lead to meningitis or meningoencephalitis, or it can lead to brain granulomas, and this is mainly seen with Getty. CNS is involved because the inhibitory factors which we see in serum are not seen in the CSF. Similarly, CSF, there's less phagocytic response in CSF, and then CSF has a source of nitrogen, creatinine, and this creatinine is important because it is going to favor the growth of the spores. Cutaneous forms are in form of subcutaneous nodules, or it could be papules. Coming to the laboratory diagnosis, as I've said, this is something very, very important. This part of the topic is very important. The clinical specimens could be like CSF if the patient has meningitis, if the lungs are involved, or pneumonia. They could be sputum, or they could be pus present in the papules or the subcutaneous nodules, and you can take a biopsy as well. If it is CSF, and if the patient has meningitis, then you have to follow the protocol which we have been telling you throughout this session, that with all cases of meningitis, irrespective of whether it is bacterial or parasitic or fungal, you're going to first do microscopic examination and give the presumptive diagnosis to the clinician. So on microscopic examination, the TLC will be markedly raised. DLC, or differential leukocyte count, will show you mainly lymphocytes or monocytes, and there could be evidence of the organism or of the fungus as well on the slide. If you do chemistry on the CSF, you will see that the protein is elevated, whereas the glucose is markedly decreased. This slide is showing you the microscopic examination of the CSF, and with 10% KOH preparation, you can easily visualize the round budding yeast cells. These are the round budding yeast cells with a distinct halo, and you can see this bud attached to it by a narrow base. So when we talk about the morphology of these organisms, these are oval budding yeast cells, and these oval budding yeast cells are surrounded by a big capsule which is twice the size of the main spore, and it is polysaccharide in nature. I've already told you about it. And you can see the bud attached to it by a narrow base. This is something very important, and it is a characteristic feature of Cryptococcus neoformans. Besides this, the budding yeast with the refractile capsule and narrow bud can also be identified by using Indianing technique or by gram staining, chalcoflower white, methylamine silver, PS stain, or HE. PS and HND stains are basically helpful in identification of the organisms in the tissues. This slide is showing you India ink preparation. It's a negative stain. We have done again this in detail while I was doing general bacteriology. And the stain, because it is negative stain, the whole slide takes up the stain and the capsule remains unstained. So you see round budding cells, and surrounding this is a halo, distinct halo, which is the capsule. And you can also make out this bud, which is attached to the main yeast by a narrow base. Gram staining is not very useful here, and it is basically unreliable. At times it is able to stain the spores, and most of the time the spores cannot be stained. However, in this case you can see the large capsule which is surrounding the spore. The capsule is not stained and with Gram's method. So this is how it looks like. Chalcoflower fluorescent stain is the one which makes the spores fluorescent, in green fluorescent would be seen, and you can again make out the spore, central spore surrounded by a big capsule around it. And here you can easily visualize the narrow based bud which is attached to the main spore. Coming to the culture media, two main medium are used: Sebroid dextrose agar and birdseed agar. And then we can also perform urease test, because this organism is going to produce urease, so this test would be positive. Sebroid dextrose agar. Once you have cultured the specimen on this Sebroid agar, you're going to put it in the incubator at 35 to 37 degrees centigrade for 24 to 48 hours, after which you're going to look for these wet mucoid creamy colonies. You can see these wet mucoid creamy colonies which are typical of Cryptococcus neoformans. On birdseed agar, you see brown colored colonies, because the substrate which we have added to this medium is going to be converted to melanin by the organism, and you get these brown colored colonies. Besides this, microscopy and culture, we are also going to perform serological tests for Cryptococcus. And serological tests, you all know by now, is that either we are going to detect the antigen which is present in the pathogen, or we are going to look for antibodies which would be there in the patient serum. Antigen detection is done by CRAG test. This is again one of your MCQ. CR stands for cryptococcal and AG is the antigen, and you are going to perform latex agglutination test for detection of this antigen, and this antigen is the capsular antigen. The antibodies in the patient serum can also be detected, and for that you're going to use indirect fluorescent antibody technique. You have done all these tests in detail while we were doing serological methods or technique, so I'm not going to go into the details here. Next we have Cryptococcus gettii, and I have already told you that it is associated with Eucryptestries, and it is going to produce disease in immunocompetent individuals who are raising pigeons or who are looking after poultry farms, etc. And they are going to cause granuloma of the brain or pneumonia. So with this, I come to the end of Cryptococcus, and if we just quickly summarize what we have learned so far, we know that Cryptococcus is not a dimorphic fungi. It is fungus. It is just present as budding yeast, and two of these species, Cryptococcus neoformans and Cryptococcus gettii, is responsible for human infections. Now, these are on the morphological features. They are oval budding yeast which are surrounded by a wide polysaccharide capsule. This organism has a narrow base as compared to the blastomeres, where the bud is attached by a broad base. Transmission is by birds and pigeons dropping, and human gets infected by inhalation of these spores. And in immunocompromised individuals, especially with AIDS, it can lead to disseminated diseases, especially Cryptococcus meningitis is very common, and there could be subcutaneous nodule. Lab diagnosis is based on the microscopic examination of this organism by using different stains which I have already discussed, like Indian ink or calcoflower or PS and HE stain. Then you put up the culture on a sebroid dextrod agar and birdseed agar, and you can perform urease test, and then you can also do serological test for it. Coming to your assignment, I've given you one MCQ and an SCQ. Kindly do the MCQ with your attendance. I want you to mark attendance after you have done the answer the MCQ. Send the assignment through WhatsApp group or email within 3 days of delivering of this lecture. A patient with respiratory problem yields sputum specimen containing budding yeast cells. Indian ink test shows that the capsule is positive, but the germ tube test is negative. So, what is the most likely pathogen? The scenario is the one which I have already shown you during my lecture, and you need to give the clinical diagnosis of the condition, the habitat and the clinical manifestation, and the lab diagnosis in this case. So kindly, as I have told you here, you will mark your attendance by answering the MCQ, and you send assignment through WhatsApp. The SCQ you're going to send through WhatsApp group or email within 3 days. I hope this is clear. So thank you very much.